Hello and welcome to another episode of Warlord Wednesday. This is issue 8 of volume 1 of The Warlord, written and illustrated by Mike Grell. We pick up shortly after where we left off previous issue. They are still in Skartaris. They're still in Mashiste's city of Kiro. We start out with a little bit of old school virtue signaling where Travis says, "I was surprised to learn it's not a black kingdom." And to which Mashiste responds, "Why? Because my skin is black? We're a nation of many races. I just happen to be its king is all. I don't know how it is in your country, but here we judge men by merits, not by color of skin." And Mariah, of course, says, "Got you with your ignorance showing, eh, Morgan?" And he's like, "Touché." And then he changes the subject because this is stupid. And we learn that Mashiste now has a mace attached where his hand was. And then suddenly, pterodactyls attack. And we get a cool 2-page spread. The City in the Sky is the title, and it's Morgan shooting his gun at some pterodactyls while Mariah and Mashiste ready for combat. Then we get a cool little fight scene with some pterodactyls, but the pterodactyls manage to carry Mariah off. Morgan jumps on the back of a pterodactyl with Mashiste, and they fly to a city in the sky. This is Skyra, where they are set upon by some robots, which they dispatch quickly. It's a similar scene to what you see on the cover, but without the sword. And the robots look kind of cool, actually. So they go in to find Mariah talking to Trog, who is the overseer of this place. He's been that way since the Atlanteans fell, and this was supposed to be an airborne defense system, and Trog was kind of the keeper. He's the last one. And he's a cyborg, so he has an extended life. And he's connected to all the systems. So he demonstrates his abilities by killing a T-Rex, and then he's like, "Oh, here, let me show you this cool thing," and then tricks Mashiste and Travis into a room, which is actually a freezer. They get locked in there, and an automated system tries to turn them into frozen snacks. And now the people freezer's an interesting addition. It reminded me very much of Logan's Run. But of course, thanks to Mashiste's hand replacement, I guess, for lack of a better word, Morgan's able to get his right hand free to get his gun and shoot the freezer gun before it makes them into full-fledged popsicles. And Morgan just has to hit a wall button because nobody's ever made it that far before, so it's actually easy to get out. Which was pretty funny, I thought. Well, Trog says, I still have a human side, and you're gonna be my bride. And she's like, "No, I won't marry you." And that's when Morgan and Mashiste show up to try and save her. Trog has some jets of fire come up from the floor because of a safety feature. But thankfully for them, Mariah gets the pistol and puts a bullet right in Trog's head. And of course, because Trog is dead, the city starts to fall, but they escape on some gliders that Mashiste and the Warlord had used to get to where they needed to be to find her. It was briefly referenced. Now, this is probably the weakest story that we've read so far. It's still a good adventure story. It's self-contained, but it should have been a two-parter because I would have liked to have seen more of the city, learned a little bit more about it. It just felt fairly rushed, and we really didn't learn anything about, the wonders of the city and all that. I think that would have been a little more interesting. It did feel very Logan's Run. But it was still a fun issue. It was a nice self-contained story that kind of added a little bit to the overall story arc. But I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of the city itself and a little bit more explanation behind it. And, have Morgan, Mashiste, and Mariah learn more about the world of the Atlanteans. Because obviously that's a big part of the entire backstory. And I think that would have been nice. But overall, it was still a good issue. It was just probably, in my opinion, the weakest one so far. But it was a nice self-contained adventure story. So that was probably, I'd still give it a high mark. It's still a recommend. It's just not as much of a recommend as the other issues. It's still better than anything that I've seen from the last several years from my limited exposure to newer books. So I would say still pick it up. It's still a fun issue. The cover is awesome. You get a crazed looking Morgan who looks like an evil Colonel Sanders taking on some robots, which, I would have liked to have learned a little bit more about the robots. Hopefully they'll show back up. So yeah, overall fun story, just not a little weaker than the others. But other than that, as always, thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel, and we hope to see you on the next episode.